Good morning to everyone, and welcome to today's ceremony, and thank you for attending. I'm honored to be speaking with you today on such an important occasion. So students, teachers, and other employees within the Austintown School District, families and friends of our veterans, we're here today to honor our service members and to remember their sacrifices they have made and the courage it takes to defend honor, duty, and country. They come from all walks of life: parents, children, grandparents, friends, neighbors, and co-workers are an important part of their communities, including here at the Austintown Fitch High School. Veterans Day is a day set aside that helps us remember the anniversary to the end of World War I. The anniversary was actually yesterday, and this is the 100th year since the end of World War I, 1918. Fast forward to today, 2018. The 11th month, 11th day, 11th hour became Armistice Day and was changed several times, but finally made it back to what it should be, Veterans Day. So it's a happy occasion on one hand, but it can be very sad on the other, knowing that there are people from Austintown and certainly across our country that gave their lives so that we may sit or stand here today and talk about freedom. This time I'd like to bring up Paul Stanton.
At this time, I would like for everyone to please stand for the Star-Spangled Banner as the Austintown Fitch Color Guard presents the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Guard, right face. Guard, retire the colors.
Thank you.
Well done, and thank you to Wes O'Connor Bill Klein, band and choir, and to Paul Stanton as well. Speaking about veterans, which is what today's all about, a couple more comments. Personally, I come from a military family, so it's easy for me to recognize and say such wonderful things about the men and women to my left and in front of me. All veterans have experienced and have displayed valor. You've heard the word valor, but do you really know what it means? Valor is stability, not of your legs and not of your arms, but valor is courage and the soul. All veterans have valor. We're here today to honor our heroes, to remember their achievements, their courage, and their dedication, and to say thank you for their sacrifices. Thinking of the heroes who join us in this group today, as well as those who are here only in spirit, a person can't help but feel awed by the enormity of what we encounter. Excuse me. We stand and sit here in the midst of patriots and the family and friends of those who have nobly served. The service members we honor today came from all walks of life, but they shared several fundamental qualities. They possessed courage, pride, determination, selflessness, and dedication to duty and integrity, all the qualities needed to serve a cause larger than oneself. Thank you. I want to take a minute to talk about our Purple Star students, as well as students serving veterans. And if they would please stand, all of those students. And remain standing so I can explain just exactly what you do here at Austintown Fitch. And I wish I could take the time to introduce all of you for the very good things that you do for veterans. First of all, the Purple Star kids. They have immediate family members in active military at this time. We provide service and support to these kids through our Purple Star program. Again, they have military in their family on active duty right now. The Purple Star, just raise your hands again. Okay. Now, as far as the students serving veterans, these are hard-working kids. Actually, all of these people standing. They're committed to supporting our veterans and our Purple Star kids. This year alone, they have participated in putting all the flags out on campus for today. I noticed if you come in the front, you'd have seen that. I know many of you probably park in the back and haven't seen it, but you need to really take a close look at what they've done just this year alone, along with the things that have been done in past years. It's an incredible scene, in my opinion. There are now crosses out in front to honor our fallen Fitch soldiers. That's the thing that's new this year, really classy. They are planning the annual spaghetti dinner on February 5th of this year as well. And there's a lot going on, but having worked in different capacities over the last few years, I can tell you this, that I've never seen any school in the Tri-County area, at least, that does as much for veterans as Austintown schools do. Okay, at this time, again, under the direction of Mr. Klein and Mr. Wes O'Connor, we'll have a few selections in honor of today's event. Purple Star Students Serving Veterans, thank you.
When I lay my head down every night and go to sleep in peace, I can stay there knowing all is well while you're standing on your feet. Keeping watch, protecting shore to shore in the air and oceans too, defending freedom at all costs for the red, the white, and blue. Thank you, oh thank you, men and women, brave and strong, to those who serve so gallantly, we sing this grateful song. To the soldiers who have traveled on to countries far and near, in peace and war you paid the price for the cause you hold so dear, that we may wake each morning bright and know that freedom reigns because of your great sacrifice. Your country joins to sing. Thank you, oh thank you, men and women, brave and strong, to those who serve so gallantly, we sing this grateful song. Thank you, oh thank you, men and women, brave and strong, to those who serve so gallantly, we sing this grateful song.
If tomorrow all the things were gone I worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away.
No, they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Oh. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA. Well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time to stand and say, yes, it's time to stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the man who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the man who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Oh, God bless the
We are here today to honor veterans who have served our great country and those who have gave the ultimate sacrifice. Also, we must not forget those who are currently overseas fighting for worldwide freedom. Members of the Austintown Fitch Symphonic Band, Concert Choir, and Orchestra would like to pay tribute with a piece entitled Armed Forces, the Pride of America. We ask for veterans to please stand when their branch song of the Armed Forces is played. The United States Army.
Over hill, over dale, we will hit the dusty trail, and the caissons go rolling along. In and out, hear them shout, counter march, and ride about, and the caissons go rolling along. Then it's high, high, in the field artillery. Shout out your numbers loud and strong, for wherever you go, you will always know that the caissons go rolling along.
The United States Marines.
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we will fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First to fight for right and freedom, then to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marines.
The United States Navy.
Away, my boys,
Anchors away. Farewell to college joys. We still have great
Thank you.
The Fitch Choir and the Fitch Band, Wes O'Connor and Bill Klein. I mean, really, wow. Incredible. Well, the state of Ohio Department of Education, in their infinite wisdom, decided to have a OSBA conference in Columbus today and tomorrow. And as a result, probably 90% of central office is in Columbus today. But I could tell you this, the ones that I've talked to were really upset they couldn't make this event. And obviously, it's easy to see why. However, we have quite a few, in my opinion, honored guests from the local, county departments, from our Austintown Township. We have Ken Carano, trustee, former Fitch teacher, by the way. Thanks, Ken. Our police chief, one of my former students when, a few years ago when I was teaching at the old AMS, Chief Bob Gavalier. Zoning inspector, Darren Crivelli. Thanks, Darren, for coming. The township park supervisor, Todd Schaefer's here as well. Thanks, Todd, for coming. Have I left anybody out from the township? These are the ones that I have. From the county, one of our county commissioners, Fitch graduate, former trustee here in Austintown, and a absolute wonderful supporter of the Austintown schools, like they all are, Dave Ditzler. Thank you, Dave. And from our Board of Education, three members of our board are here. The other three, as I said, are down in, or other two are down in Columbus for those meetings. But these three are super supporters of everything you and I do. Dr. David Ritchie. Harold Porter. And the president of our Board of Education, Donnie Sherwood. Thank you. And now I'd like to bring up three of our teachers here in Austintown who are veterans. I'll start with, if you don't mind standing up, I know I saw two of you. Let's start with Sergeant Robert Ostoff. Where you at? These folks you see around the campus here in the classroom, but and I too see that. But then when you have the opportunity to really understand what they did for our country, it makes you think twice about that teacher and the things that he has accomplished and what he did for us. Let me tell you a little bit about Sergeant Ostoff. He served in the Air Force from 1968 to 1969, served in Vietnam from 69 to 70, and stationed in Da Nang, where he flew as an interpreter in recon missions over the demilitarized zone. which is a very dangerous area to be flying. Remember when I mentioned I'm from a military family? My brother did similar things that Sergeant Osthoff did. He flew reconnaissance over Vietnam as well. He was the pilot. But his duty was to intercept messages to decide if the messages represented friendliness or foe. After that, he would make his recommendation for target settings via Navigator to fix targets and to direct F-4 Phantoms to destroy targets. And unfortunately, he was under fire most of that time. Fortunately, he's here today to tell his story. During his tenure in Vietnam, he flew over 20 combat missions. His plane was shot down once and he recovered, but the ordeal still haunts him to this day. Can you imagine the horror of that? He earned the Air Medal, the Vietnam Campaign Medal, the Meritorious Service Medal, and the Good Conduct Medal. Ladies and gentlemen, let's thank our teacher for his duty. Next, Sean Irwin. Sean Irwin. Top left. Holy mackerel. I can't even see that far. Sean is teaches in the industrial tech department here. I guess we would call it wood technology. He's a veteran of the United States Navy. From 1982 to 1986, he was aboard a ship called the USS Yosemite, which is a destroyer / tender. So, of course, I asked him the question, what's that mean? Well, in his deployment out of Mayport, Florida, in the 6th Naval Fleet, working in the Atlantic and Indian Oceans, his job in crossing the equator numerous times, thus being referred to as a shellback. I never heard of that either, but he was giving me a naval lesson. His job was to repair problems with other ships in those two oceans. And from my perspective, and certainly from all of us, you have to understand that somebody has to do all of these jobs in order to keep not just the naval fleets operating, but in every other aspect of what we do militarily as a country. That's what he did. And we thank you for your service. The third and final educator was principal here at Austintown Fitch High School before you current juniors and seniors were here, and now he went from one building to another. Now he's principal at the elementary school. But I've known him since he was very young. He lived on the same street as I and my family lived on in Austintown. Tim Kelty, Sergeant Tim, on your feet, buddy. Tim graduated from Fitch in 1986, and in high school, while he was here, and I could say this because the kid around with him, he had the collar, the football collar on, and and he had the short shirt, and his gut hung over his belt line, you know. And I think he's all right with that, because if you saw the pictures, I was actually afraid of him at one time. Anyway, he played for the Austintown Fitch Falcons, was selected All-Steel Valley and All-State honorable mention as middle linebacker his senior year. He was, as I call him, he was a beast. He enlisted into the U.S. Army and received the GI Bill. Tim was assigned to the famed 1st Infantry Division, better known as the Big Red One. He proudly served at the rank of specialist during his full tour in Desert Storm in 1990 and 91. He was also wounded on February 22nd, 1991, and he went on to receive the Bronze Star for his actions in Basra, Iraq. Not a lot of people know this. I've got photographs of Tim when he was in the service, and it's very impressive. While in combat, Tim Kelty, along with his guys, volunteered to help an outflank squad. In that outflank squad was one of Tim's friends who happened to be a former Fitch Falcon also. So he went out after them with his unit and took care of business. Tim has a message that he wrote to me for all you juniors and seniors here at Fitch High School. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read that, Tim. Falcon pride is defined as the comprehensive effort of the students, staff, and alumni to instill pride in ourselves, pride in our environment, pride in our relationships, and pride of our great school. We developed strong pride in ourselves because there was an expectation that we were leaders in the hallways and in the classrooms. There was an expectation that we treated each other like brothers and sisters. There was an expectation that we put team accomplishments in front of everything else. That's Tim Kelty right there. Thank you for your service, Tim. Now, let me tell you a little bit about our committee, our Veterans Day Committee. This was the first year that I personally was a part of that. And one of the reasons was because the head principal here, Mr. Burneye, where's he at? In Columbus. Not through, he wanted to be here, but again, the Ohio Department of Education kind of forces you into making those decisions. So. But in any event, this committee, as I started on it, I guess it was in September, and it's not a big committee, but it's a committee that certainly gets things done. Oh my goodness. It's kind of led by Mrs. O'Neill, who everybody knows. If you don't mind standing up, Mrs. O'Neill. And if you remain standing up, we got to include Mr. O'Neill, because all of the woodworking to honor our veterans out in the main hall and the crosses that you saw as you walked in today is largely responsible for Mr. O'Neill, Jim O'Neill. So thank you for that as well. Freshman principal Zach Barson, new to us this year, and like me, jumped into the committee and does a great job for us. Zach Barson, part of our committee. Certainly, Jack Kidd. Jack, everybody knows Jack. Stand up, Jack, for crying out loud. Jack and his sidekick Ken Jacobek, who's last on the list because he's coming up here next, make up that committee. And That and some help from a few other folks, well, you see what they've done. Just walking in the front of this building, makes you really think and understand just exactly what Austintown Fitch High School and Veterans Day is all about. So at this time, I'd like to bring up Marine Sergeant, 1964 graduate of Fitch High School, Ken Jakubek.
Before I introduce our other distinguished guests to my left and in front of me, I want to congratulate the concert choir. Last night they received the Patriotism Award from the Fitch band parents for all their outstanding work they do. For 47 years, they went to veterans hospitals and sang at spring break, giving up their spring breaks. 47 years, so let's give them a big hand. When I mention your group of veterans, please stand, but I want this first gentleman to stand up first. We have a World War II veteran here today, James Rogers, World War II, United States Army. Please stand, James. Those that served during World War II up to Korea, please stand. Okay, we got James. Those that served during the Korean War and were in during the Korean War up to Cuba and Vietnam, please stand. Those that served during the Cuba crisis, during and in Vietnam, and the Dominican Republic, please stand. Those men and women that served right after Vietnam during Lebanon, Grenada, Panama, up to the Gulf War, please stand. Those that served during the Gulf War, which would be Kuwait and Iraq, Somalia, Haiti, Bosnia, and Kosovo, up to the war in Afghanistan and Iraq, please stand. Thank you. Those that served during Afghanistan and Iraq and are currently serving this country, please stand. From one serviceman to another, thank you. At this time, I'd like to introduce freshman principal Zach Barson.
Good morning. Today, I have the distinct honor of introducing our two veteran speakers. Our first speaker is Mr. Delmas Stubbs. Some of you students may know him. He's actually an OHSAA referee, amongst many other things. Delmas E. Stubbs is currently the Community Outreach Coordinator at the Mahoning County Veterans Service Commission. He provides outreach services to veterans of Mahoning County, including organizing events, housing, and county and burial benefits. Mr. Stubbs is a 1986 graduate of Youngstown South High School. Months after graduation, Mr. Stubbs entered the U.S. Army on August 4th, 1986. Mr. Stubbs retired on September 1st, 2008, after 22 years of active federal military service as a military policeman. Upon his retirement, Mr. Stubbs has held employment with the Norfolk Southern Railroad as a supervisor, the Pentagon with the Office of the Provost Marshal General as a system analyst, and Ohio Highway Patrol as a dispatcher and G3 security. His military assignments include serving at post in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, Berlin, Germany, Yongsan, Korea, Erie, Pennsylvania, Fort Hood, Texas, Jordan, and Iraq. Mr. Stubbs' military awards include Meritorious Service Medal, Joint Service Commendation Medal, Army Commendation Medal, 7th Award, Army Achievement Medal, 5th Award, Joint Meritorious Unit Award, Army Good Conduct Medal, 7th Award, Army of Medal, Korean Defense Service Medal, Humanitarian Service Medal, Non-Commissioned Officer Professional Development Ribbon, 3rd Award, Army Service Ribbon, Overseas Service Ribbon, 3rd Award, Driver Mechanic Badge, Mechanic, and Army Recruiter Badge. Mr. Stubbs currently resides in the greater Youngstown area. He's currently attending Youngstown State University under a federal education program pursuing another bachelor's degree in social work. Mr. Stubbs plans to continue his education by pursuing his master's degree in the future. Please welcome Delmas E. Stubbs to the podium, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today? So I'm going to teach you one thing, okay, before I even start speaking. When in the Army, if you ask a soldier how he's doing, he says, "Hua," okay? That means everything except no. So we're going to try that again. How is everybody doing today? I like that. I like that. I want to give Mr. Klein a great big round of applause, him and his choir. I have like 12 nieces and nephews, and they're all in high school, so they try to keep me a little bit young. So he showed up and showed out. He did the ceremony down at the laying of the roses, and that choir was on point. You hear me? Can I get a whoa? There you go. All right. So I want to thank everybody for having me speak today. Sergeant McGinnis was unable to be here due to some family issues. I am deeply honored to stand with you, commemorating the sacrifices those military men and women laid down their lives, served, and are still providing service to this nation. All the introductions have been made already. Everybody stood up, everybody from the branches of service. But at this point in time, I would like to take a moment in silence for those Fitch graduates that bear the names of the crosses outside of the front of the school. Thank you. Just to name a few. Those men laid their life down so we can sit here in this room today. On the date November 11th, every year, we find ourselves reflecting on these men and women who so bravely risked their lives, limbs, in the face of grave danger. We remember those who left the comforts of home to fight for us in our freedoms, but never returning. That was given a new name. My name was no longer Delmas. My name was Soldier. Mr. Ken Jacobak, his name was no longer Ken Jacobak. It was what, Ken? Marine. We changed our names in honor for the country. Coast Guardmen, airmen, all alike. For some of our veterans, we are unable to pay our respects at a final resting place. There are still more than 82,000 military personnel missing in action from all conflicts since World War II. We will never forget them, and we will never stop looking to bring them home. Those of us here today understand that to recognize their service and sacrifice, we must ensure these individuals are never forgotten and that their actions stay alive in our memories and in our hearts. This is important for honoring the heroes of today and the veterans of years gone by who paved the way for them. In 1954, President Eisenhower officially changed the name of the holiday from Armistice to Veterans Day, charged us to take appreciation a step further with action. I would ask you, when you leave here and go out for the rest of your day, to keep a fallen comrade or a fallen soldier in your heart and say a prayer for their family. It was and still is this immense collective sacrifices that have helped keep our country safe and free. As long as we continue to honor them with our actions and remember their sacrifices, they will never be forgotten. Today is Veterans Day, and I am a veteran, Delma Stubbs with the Mahoning County Veterans Service Commission. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your service. Our next speaker is Staff Sergeant Roger Bacon. Roger was born to be a Marine. Roger's father was a naval doctor assigned to the Marine Corps in Camp Lejeune. In 1945, while Roger was actually being born, his father was in the next operating room delivering the twins for Lieutenant General Chesty Pullers. Roger graduated in 1962 from the Culver Summer Naval School of the Culver Military Academy. He then graduated in 1963 from David Anderson High School in Lisbon, Ohio. And in 1966, he received a bachelor's in business administration from the Columbus Business University. Roger enlisted in the United States Marine Corps in July of 1966. He was sent to MCRD San Diego for basic training before going to ITR at Camp Pendleton and Machine Gun School. From here, Roger received orders to report to the 1st Battalion, 3rd Marine Regiment at Okinawa, Japan for jungle warfare and special landing insertion training. His battalion was then assigned Special Landing Force Alpha and sent to Vietnam aboard the USS Okinawa LPH-3, which is a helicopter carrier. For those who do not know, the SLF covered all Vietnam to assist, rescue, and recover any military units in trouble. Because of the intensity in these operations, it is usually a 3-month tour. However, Roger's battalion was kept on this duty for 9 months. Because he was there for 9 months, he was involved in extensive action, suffering large losses and more combat operations than any Marine unit during the war. On their first operation, LCPL, Bacon was carrying the radio for the XO of Charlie Company 1/3 when they were ambushed, and Roger was awarded the Navy Marine Corps Commendation Medal with Valor. 6 days later, Roger was wounded, and he was medevaced to the USS Sanctuary, which is a Navy hospital ship. This operation cost the battalion 53 killed in actions, and 13 were in Roger's company. Roger returned to his unit and was promoted to the corporal and took over machine gun team. In August of 1967, Roger was promoted to sergeant, making E5 in less than 1 year, and he was cited for saving a squad of Marines that were pinned down in an open rice paddy after suffering heavy casualties. Roger was wounded a second time in September of 1967 when the company was trapped in a minefield and he was hit with shrapnel from a mine. But he did not leave combat. On an operation in October of 1967, the Viet Cong overran the lines, killing Marines as they penetrated the command post, killing the executive officer and wounding the commanding officer and many others. Roger's orders were to keep the corpsmen alive, help treat and move the wounded to a secure area. During this, Roger was grazed by a bullet, but made the corpsman promise not to report the injury because a third Purple Heart would send him home, and he was not going to leave his men. Completing a 13-month tour in Vietnam, Roger returned to Camp Lejeune and was assigned to the 1st Battalion, 1st ITR at Camp Geiger as a company platoon commander, training 250 plus troops every 14 days. 5 months later, Roger was released from active service, receiving orders to report to the Active Naval Marine Reserve Unit in Akron, Ohio, and was promoted to Staff Sergeant. At this time, Roger entered the business world and had a very successful 40-plus year career working as a human resource professional, the last 20 years as the corporate director of HR for the Taylor Winfield Corporation. Since his retirement in 2010, Roger has been elected to the Board of Directors for the 3rd Marine Division Association and to the Board of Directors for the Columbiana County Community Action Agency. He is also a member of the DAV AMVETS Post 44 Struthers, VFW Post 4111 in Lisbon, Ohio, and the American Legion Post 290 in Columbiana. He is also with the Veteran Services in Columbiana. Roger has been married for 38 years, raised 2 stepchildren, has 5 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. For his service, Roger received 2 Purple Hearts, turned down a 3rd. He also received a star and the Navy Commendation Medal with Valor. Thank you for your service, Mr. Bacon. Please welcome to the podium.
First, before I start, I'd like to tell you I'm a little intimidated. I've never done this before, especially to a crowd like this. My time in my war was basically 51 years ago. That's probably older than some of your parents. So I have not spent much time ever speaking, but I do have some story that I would like to tell. Veterans Day is a sacred day to war veterans. But I find myself many times wondering, does the non-veteran really understand the importance of this day? My judgment is they probably don't. They just take it as another day. During the Vietnam War, an estimated 259 million American men and women were sent to war. The war lasted 16 years. Over 58,000 men and women did not come home. 304,000 were wounded or dismembered, and many thousands more brought the war home with them in what today we know as PTSD, but wasn't recognized at that point in time. We fought a war that became increasingly unpopular in the public, yet we were held accountable for the policies that the U.S. government made us sacrifice our time underneath. It took this country probably 20 years, at least 2 decades, to recognize what our service members did. Vietnam veterans, when they came home, were spit on. They were called baby killers. They were denied employment opportunities, and many were harassed when they tried to go to college. The truth about the Vietnam veteran is this: they served with as much honor, courage, and commitment as any American warriors that went before them or after them. We fought a war with hand-me-down equipment from World War II and Korea. My Marine outfit was the first unit to carry the M16, which was a defective rifle, and we fought for almost a year with a piece of junk. Those that survived returned to an America that we didn't know. We didn't recognize it, and we were scorned, but most of us made a successful life for ourselves. I'd like to share with you, earlier this year, the Vietnam moving wall was in Warren. Maybe some of you visited it. Maybe some of you saw it on the news. But I'd like to share with you some facts of that wall. That wall contains over 58,000 names. There are 3 sets of fathers and sons. 39,996 were 22 or younger. 8,283 were 19. The largest group, 33,103, were 18. 12 were 17. 5 were 16, and 1 was 15. 997 died on their first day. 1,448 were killed on their last day. 31 sets of brothers. If you grasp that, that means that 31 sets of parents lost 2 of their sons. And 8 women. A thing that isn't on the wall, and I wasn't going to talk about it, but there was a classmate of mine that thought he was going to be here today. As my bio said, I came from a small school down in Lisbon, Ohio. I graduated with 54 students. 58 of those 58,000 names were my brothers. If you comprehend what I'm saying, I lost my entire class. And I have to live with this every day. Why wasn't I one of them? Many of you will leave here today only hearing the numbers of what this wall has created. To those of us that survived, we see the faces and we feel the pain of what those names mean. The next time you see a veteran, remember these numbers and take a moment out of your life and offer him or her your gratitude, your understanding, and your prayers. Remember that these brave men and women are true Americans, and as you saw, we have people today that are experiencing the same horrors on the battlefield that we did. And you can help them by saying thank you for serving our country. Those simple words say a lot and go a long way towards the healing of the mind, the body, and the heart. We don't ask for much. We ask for your understanding of why we may sometimes look and be perceived different than other people. We experience life-changing events in the early years of our life. And we are branded with the part of the American experience and are proud of it. God bless this great country of ours, and may our future generations stand up and defend it. Thank you.
Thank you for your service. I would now like to introduce a 1962 graduate of Austintown Fitch and proud military veteran, Mr. Jack Kidd.
Thank you, young man. Would our Veterans Committee please come forward? We have a presentation to make to both of our speakers. Help me pass these, would you? Gentlemen, as appreciation for your service to our country, our great country, and for being here today, telling us about your life lessons, we have a presentation to make to you.
Who's first?
Delmas. Roger. Delmas, from Austintown Fitch High School, thank you very much for being here. Roger, same for you. Thank you very much for being here.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
We have a couple of more presentations. County Commissioner Dave Ditzler has a presentation to make.
I'm always honored to be able to be given an opportunity to come back and participate at Veterans Day, being an Austintown Fitch alumni. Tim Kelty said it best, and he is one of my heroes as well. Falcon pride. You know, we never lose that. We don't recognize it right now as deeply as we will in years to come, but Falcon pride will always remain in our hearts. And I want to really have everybody give a great round of applause for not only the administration, the faculty, the staff, the student body. What an amazing job that they have done here today. You know, 100 years, a centennial, 100 years. I'm proud to be here on behalf of my colleagues, Anthony Trafficani and Carol Remedios Righetti, myself, Dave Ditzler, the 3 county commissioners of Mahoning County. We're proud to serve, and we're proud to honor all the veterans that are here today and whose names are out there on the crosses and lost their lives. I wear my father's every Veterans Day. He was a sergeant in the Army Air Corps in World War II, passed in '91, Charles Ditzler, but there's nothing that we owe more to our freedom and to ourselves and our lives today than to honor these veterans and all the veterans. And on behalf of the county, Roger Bacon, Delmas Stubbs, we're honored to have you here today, and for your story and for your dedication and for your service, we thank you.
One more. Austintown trustee Ken Carano, come forward, please.
It was my pleasure to be in this school 35 years ago when the first assembly like this took place. And what has happened from then until now has just been greater and greater and greater. The only sad part of it all in the 35 years that I taught here is that there's only a few. Many of you who were here 35 years ago remember that that whole line was filled with veterans. So we have to honor them posthumously today. But I have to thank Fitch High School, the band, the choir, the administration. I have to thank the committee that does such an outstanding job every year. Austintown is a veterans community. Very few people, very few towns or cities have near what we have for veterans, especially our veterans circle.
On behalf of Jim Davis, my colleague, Doug McGling, my colleague, our fiscal officer, Laura Wolf, but more importantly, for the people of Austintown, I thank you two gentlemen for coming here, for honoring us and telling us your story. And by the way, as an old speech teacher, keep talking. You're doing a great job. On behalf of the citizens of Austintown, proclamations to both of you. Thank you.
At this time, I would like Kristen O'Neill, Gold Star daughter, to come to the podium, please.
Will Jack Kidd and Ken Jacobak please come to the podium? These two guys are relentless when it comes to honoring our community veterans. I just felt it was time they need to be recognized. Ken Jacobak was a Marine during the Vietnam era. He was stationed in Quantico, Virginia during his service. He has been involved in so many projects in this community that benefit our veterans. He organizes the annual Patriots Day every September. It is the most beautiful ceremony I could even imagine. He honors over a dozen veterans at each event. Jack Kidd was in the Air Force and was stationed in Alaska during the Vietnam era, where he met his beautiful wife, Vicki, right there. He was instrumental in honoring his two classmates at Fitch, of the Fitch class of '62, who were killed in action in Vietnam, one being my father. He had an indoor showcase and outdoor monument made in their honor. I have had the pleasure of working with these guys on the Austintown Veterans Committee for several years now. The 50th commemoration of the Vietnam War out of Washington, D.C., organizing this program, the Purple Star program, and the student serving veterans groups of kids. I am so lucky to be in the company of these two gentlemen. Thank you, my dearest friends, for all that you do in this community for our veterans. Will Paul Schultz please stand? This was a last minute thing. I just found out, a few days ago that he was coming. Paul Schultz is a Vietnam veteran. He drove almost 4 hours today to be here with us from Tonawanda, New York. Paul was my father's best friend when he was killed in action in Vietnam. This past summer, his son Aaron contacted Jack Kidd, who in turn contacted me without Paul's knowledge. After a phone conversation with Paul, he decided to drive to Ohio and meet me. He has never spoken about Vietnam to his wife, his kids, or anyone until this past summer. One of the things that happened when Paul came to my house, we went through my dad's foot locker together. He explained all of the items in it in detail. When he got to 2 photos of my brother and I as babies, Paul went silent. As he wept, he explained that he took these photos out of my dad's pocket after his death and put them in the foot locker. He held those photos 52 years ago. So much else has happened, but I could not begin to explain it all to you today. One of the greatest things that Paul said to me was that my dad would be proud of me. Thank you, Paul, for coming into our lives. Thank you for becoming part of my family. Thank you for sharing stories of my dad with me. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for perhaps making my dad's time in Vietnam just a little bit brighter. Thank you for being my dad's best friend, and thank you for your service. Will the family of Sergeant Larry Coons Jr. please come to the front? Gonna try to make it through this one too. Larry Coons was born on April 9th, 1981 in Youngstown, and was the son of Larry Coons Sr. and Kelly Milnick. Larry had 4 sisters, Sarah, Dawn, Amber, and Autumn. According to his sisters, he was a very protective big brother and would have been the world's best uncle to all of his nieces and nephews. He married his wife Courtney on September 28th, 2002, whom he adored. They had a daughter, Mackenzie Coons, who is a sophomore here at Fitch High School. He was so excited to become a dad and loved his little girl more than anything. During high school, Larry's family moved out of state for a couple of years, but returned to Austintown and returned to Austintown schools. Larry, who would have been a senior at Fitch, decided instead of coming back to school to enlist in the Army Reserves in 1999 and bypass his senior year. He would have graduated with the class of 2000. He then enlisted in active duty in February of 2004 with the Army. The military was very important, and he loved serving his country. He was assigned to the 2nd Battalion, 17th Field Artillery Regiment, 2nd Brigade, 2nd Infantry in Fort Carson, Colorado, on June 13, during a combat operation in Air Ramadi, Iraq. His military vehicle came under a grenade attack. Sergeant Larry Coons was killed that day in the attack at age 24. Larry received the Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Combat Action Badge, Iraq Campaign War on Terrorism Military Merit Badge. Because he gave up his graduation to serve his country, Larry never received a diploma. So today we would like to honor him by making that happen. Representing his family today is his daughter, Mackenzie Coons, and his father, Larry Sr. The family standing here today is a Gold Star family. On behalf of Austintown Local Schools, our superintendent, and our Board of Education, I would like to present your family in honor of Larry, posthumously, the Austintown Fitch High School diploma, which he so greatly deserves. Congratulations.
Just a few final remarks relative to today, and I'm directing, I guess, most of this towards our students, who, by the way, you were awesome today in showing the respect and honor that you've shown. Final remarks here, and then I'll explain to you about the playing of taps at the end here. But we recognize that all our veterans have given something of themselves to this country, and some have given all, laying down their lives to defend the freedom we hold so dear. This morning, I ask all of you to reflect on our liberty, and in doing so, understand that we need to be faithful stewards of the freedom we have been granted. Never forget that we cannot rightfully celebrate the joy of our freedom without remembering the great price paid for that freedom. I find it staggering in thinking about the debt we owe to the untold number of American veterans who chose to set aside their personal ambitions and dreams to assure that the well-being of our great nation stands. We, the living, are indeed the beneficiary of those who made tremendous sacrifices for the advancement and surety of our liberty. thank you once again for being here this morning for a celebration with our veterans. Now, playing of taps, I would ask all of you present to stand. There will be no clapping or anything of that nature at the end of taps. Taps will be played by Mr. Mark Pepino, another member of our administrative staff at the elementary school. So please stand.
In association with Austintown Local Schools and Austintown Township.